Have you ever wondered why things seem so hard lately? Why so many doors close and so many promises feel distant? What if I told you that all of this is not a mistake, but a sign that you've been chosen? That what you're facing right now is part of a divine plan being revealed step by step? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see that every struggle has a purpose, and that your victory is closer than you think. You didn't get this far by chance. There's something within you that knows there's more, that a greater purpose is waiting to be discovered. Maybe you felt alone in your battles, as if no one could understand the weight you're carrying. Or perhaps you're tired of waiting for God's promises, feeling like time is working against you. But let me tell you something, God hasn't forgotten you. In this video, you'll understand why the trials you're facing are actually signs that God is working behind the scenes. We'll explore how challenges can become stepping stones to your spiritual victory, how God's timing never fails, and how the wilderness can become the stage for the greatest miracles. Here you'll find answers, encouragement, and practical tools to transform your faith into action. More than that, you'll discover that the chains holding you back can be broken, that the wait is not the end, and that God is preparing something incredible for your life. So get ready. This message is for you, who feel deep in your soul that you were chosen for something greater. Stay until the end and see how your story is about to change. Being chosen is an honor that many don't recognize right away. That's because the journey of the chosen is marked by unique challenges, trials, and moments of God's silence. Think about Joseph, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and forgotten in prison. He could have given in to bitterness but knew that God had a greater plan. If you feel like your struggles have been intense, it might be a sign that you too were chosen for something extraordinary. But being chosen isn't about perfection, it's about being willing to be shaped. God doesn't call the equipped, He equips the called. Imagine an artist sculpting a masterpiece. Every strike on the marble seems like damage, but it's actually the process of revealing something beautiful. If today you feel like life is striking you, perhaps it's because God is carving out the purpose He has for you. Want to start recognizing this calling? Take a few minutes of your day to reflect and ask, God, what do you want to teach me through this? Write down the thoughts that come to you, no matter how small they seem. Just like Joseph interpreted dreams and waited patiently, you too can find small directions that will become big answers over time. Understand that being chosen doesn't mean the path will be easy. There are chains that need to be broken before you can move forward. The chains holding you back aren't always visible, but you feel their weight on your soul. They are doubts, fears, or even past hurts that drain your energy and hinder your progress. But here's the truth, no chain is strong enough to resist the power of God. Just as Peter was freed from prison by an angel, you can also experience a freedom that only divine grace can offer. The question is, are you willing to let go of those chains? Spiritual awakening begins with the courage to face what paralyzes you. Often we're so used to our limitations that we accept the chains as part of who we are. Don't do that. Identify the areas where you feel stuck. Maybe it's the fear of failure, resentment from the past, or even a false belief that you're not worthy of God's promises. Write it down and declare out loud, "This will not define me anymore." To break these chains, you need to feed your faith with actions. Choose a verse to meditate on daily, like Romans 8 verse 37. In all these things, we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. Also, replace negative thoughts with declarations of victory. For example, instead of saying, "I can't do it," declare, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Each declaration is a strike against the chains holding you back. When the chains begin to break, you'll experience a freedom that awakens your soul to something greater. But the journey doesn't end there. The next step is overcoming the trials that will inevitably arise, because it's through difficulties that God shapes the chosen. Trials are not signs of abandonment but evidence that God is working in you. Joseph, in his journey, faced betrayals, injustices, and years of being forgotten, but each difficulty was a step toward the divine purpose. Likewise, the challenges you face today may seem unbearable, but they're shaping you for something greater. Remember, the greatest battles are reserved for the chosen. Resilience is built when you decide to see difficulties as opportunities for growth. Think of gold, it only becomes pure when it passes through fire. The same goes for you. Every loss, every closed door, is a step in your spiritual refinement. God doesn't waste your tears, He uses them to water the ground for your future victory. What seems like a delay now is actually preparation. To develop resilience, start looking back and recognizing moments when God has already been faithful. Take a journal and write down 3 difficult situations where you overcame something with His help. Read these notes whenever you feel discouraged. It will renew your trust in the unchanging God and remind you that if He acted before, He will act again. But the journey of resilience requires something more: patience. Because no matter how prepared you are, God's timing is always perfect. God's timing can feel frustrating, but He is never late. Abraham and Sarah are powerful examples of this. God promised them a son, but the wait was so long that they tried to resolve things on their own, creating more problems. This story teaches us that patience isn't just a virtue, it's a demonstration of faith. When it seems like nothing is happening, God is actually preparing everything. Wait on God, but not passively. Think of a farmer. He plants the seeds and then works the soil, waters it, and removes weeds while waiting for the harvest. The same goes for your spiritual life. While you're waiting for the miracle, keep praying, working, and preparing. What can you do today to be ready when God opens the door? Use the waiting period as a time of learning. If you're praying for a purpose, start seeking knowledge in the area where you feel called. If you're waiting for financial blessing, use this time to learn how to manage your resources better. God partners with those who move in faith. Remember, waiting on God is active, not passive. And while you wait, know that God may be using the wilderness to shape your faith and character. The wilderness is not a place of punishment but a place of preparation. Before the promised land, there is always a wilderness. The wilderness is uncomfortable but essential. It was in the wilderness that God taught the Israelites to depend on Him, providing manna daily and water from the rock. The wilderness teaches us to trust God, even when we don't see the resources. If you're going through a period of uncertainty or difficulty, know that this is not the end. It's training so you can enter the promised land with faith and maturity. Often we complain about the wilderness because we want quick answers. But what if the wilderness is the place where God wants to speak directly to you? Just as Moses went up the mountain in the wilderness to hear God's voice, use this time to seek intimacy with Him. Set aside moments of silence and prayer, and ask God to reveal what He is doing in your life right now. To endure the wilderness, it's crucial to change your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What does God want me to learn here?" A practice that can help is starting a gratitude journal. Every day, write something God has done for you, even if it seems small. This habit strengthens your faith and helps you see that God is taking care of you, even in the midst of scarcity. But the wilderness isn't just about endurance, it's also about transformation. God is removing what isn't useful and strengthening what will be essential for your journey. Just as Jesus fasted in the wilderness before beginning His ministry, your wilderness is preparation for something greater. And when you're ready, you'll see that your faith can produce miracles. Let's dive into that next. Faith is the foundation of the greatest miracles. Think of the woman with the issue of blood who, after 12 years of suffering, dared to believe that simply touching Jesus' garment would heal her. Her faith not only brought healing but also demonstrated that God honors those who trust in His power, even in the face of obstacles. Your faith, no matter how small it may seem, is enough to move the mountains in your path. Persistence in faith is a powerful spiritual principle. Elijah, for instance, prayed 7 times for rain during a drought, and it was only after persistent prayer that he saw a small cloud on the horizon. Perhaps you're in the 5th or 6th round of prayer and feel like giving up. But the lesson here is clear: keep going. Persevere, because often the greatest breakthrough is just one step away. Faith requires more than words, it demands action. If you're praying for something, act as if you already believe the victory is on its way. Are you asking for a new job? Update your resume, send it to opportunities, and prepare for interviews. Act in obedience and confidence, even without seeing immediate results. Remember, faith without works is dead. And this is where it all comes together: the promises, the wilderness, the trials, and God's timing. Your journey thus far has been training for a spiritual and emotional breakthrough that only faith can bring. But the question now is, are you ready to turn all of this into action and become a living testimony of God's promises? Here's the most important point of this message: you are the living testimony of God's promises. All your pain, losses, and struggles have a greater purpose. You were chosen, called for something far beyond what you can imagine right now. Joseph didn't know his prison would lead him to become the governor of Egypt, but he trusted. Just like him, you are in a phase of preparation for something extraordinary. Now think about this: the chains you felt weren't made to hold you, they were made to be broken. The wilderness that seemed endless isn't a punishment, It's the training ground where God is strengthening your faith and building your character. Everything that seemed like a delay is actually God's hand orchestrating the exact moment for the miracle to happen. God is telling you, I have never abandoned you. On the days you cried, He was with you. In the moments you thought about giving up, He held you. And now He is asking you to act. Don't wait any longer. What God has placed in your hands today is enough to take the first step. Act in faith, because it's in movement that He works miracles. And the final question is, are you ready to take on the role God has reserved for you? Ready to rise, act, and live the purpose He has already declared over your life? This is the moment. Your spiritual victory begins now. Now that you've heard all this, the most important question you need to answer is, what are you going to do with this message? It's not enough to just know you're chosen, that God has promises for your life, and that every battle is a step toward your spiritual victory. It's time to act. It's time to turn faith into movement and make choices that align your life with the purpose God has already planned for you. Maybe it's time to take the first step to break the chains holding you back. Start by writing down the areas where you feel stuck and present them to God in prayer. Declare His promises over your life. Read stories like those of Joseph, Abraham, and Sarah to remind yourself that God's timing is perfect, and He never fails. Take small acts of faith every day, because God works in partnership with those who trust and act. Here's the challenge. What decision will you make today? Who you will become tomorrow depends on what you start now. God has already placed in your hands what you need for the first step. Are you waiting for a financial miracle? Start by organizing your finances. Want to grow spiritually? Dedicate yourself to prayer and studying the Word. It's not about the size of the step, but the decision to start. So, how about taking the next step and committing to this journey of transformation? Share in the comments how this message has awakened your spirit. If you're truly ready to unlock your destiny, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Share this video with someone you know who needs to hear this. Because just as God is working in you, He can use you to transform someone else's life. Remember, you are chosen. And your journey is just beginning.